to join in those groups, to lead and facilitate those groups. So there'll be a better opportunity for more intimate and exchange and dialogue. The first group will be with Dan, with Salah from Palestine, from Alan from Lebanon. The second group will be with Nuf and with Oscar from Palestine and Susie from Norway. And then the third group will be with Emir and also with Abdullah from Norway / Palestine. So those are the three groups. That's Dan, Salah and Alan in group 1. There'll be Nuf, Oscar and Susie in group 2, leading those groups. And then in group 3 it will be led by Emir and Abdullah. And now what we'll do is we'll break you into your 3 small groups and encourage you to engage in some dialogue. We're going to give you around...
Just I have one question, a simple question.
Wait.
I didn't find anyone just ask some question or talk, even you. All of them talk about Middle East problem, gay problem, sexuality, blah blah, etc. But no one talk about the real problem in LGBT sector.
Right. Well, you can talk about that within the workshops. That can be brought up in the workshops. So what we'll do is, you know, you're involved in one of the 3 workshops, so you can bring that discussion in. And the idea is that there were 11 speakers, but we thought it would be unrealistic to have 11 speakers on a panel talking at you for 3 hours and then having almost no time. So we saw this last night. There were lots of speakers, very little time, and it took a very long time to get through all the speakers, and then very little time to actually engage and have any dialogue. So we've started the debate, and actually there is lots more to talk about, and there are a number of those speakers who have already identified in each of those 3 workshops who can help stimulate more discussion. And then what we'd like to do is bring you back in about 40 minutes time. We'll give you 40 minutes to talk more in your workshop groups, and then feed back to the main group some of the key discussion points that were had in your discussion. And then there'll be a little more opportunity for more for a whole group discussion, so that we can capture some of what was said in the smaller groups. But we think that's a fairer way of enabling people who don't feel confident speaking in the full group to be able to ask questions in a smaller group and be able to bring in their own experiences. And that's based on what colleagues, sisters, brothers in the room have said to us that they would like to see more of happening. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to ask people to break you into 3 groups, if that's okay, and then I guess you can work out where you physically want to sit. I guess we could have 1 or 2 groups in here, and then maybe 1 outside, if that's possible to do. But let's go with the group. Alors, 1. Sister, are you saying? Okay. Can I make you number 2? Group 2. 2. Ah. 3. Susie, you're leading a group.
Chaque question, on prend la première question, on focalise et après on retourne. Peut-être que ce sera mieux. Oui? Qu'est-ce que tu penses?
Oui, c'est pas évident.
Oui,
oui, prenons la première, rappelle la première.
Okay, so we'll start with the first question. Right.
How can we help, basically? Maybe not in the Netherlands, because you don't need help, maybe. But
Quel support peut-on utiliser
quel support
peut-on utiliser pour aider les pays musulmans?
Pas le pays.
Les gens LGBT dans les pays musulmans. Voilà. Alors, quel support?
Expertise. We need people who has knowledge, who has connection.
But you know how organizations could help each other in many different countries? By making an exchange programs, as we make a Chamber and Queer World organization now. We make an exchange, international exchange program. We invite gay activists from, for example, Bosnia, Serbia, Palestine, here and here and here, and we share our experience together. We get to know maybe somebody in Norway, and we know
It's not the only one that I've heard of. We are like 2 people talking. Maybe we should get some more voices here and have an organized form. Your hand up if you want to talk. Now we have corners here that talking. So, yeah, I will.
Okay, I have sort of a solution.
And another person, and that person was also blocked. The authorities knew their name, and if they would go to the airport, they would be arrested on site. So they couldn't come. I'm sorry to say. We also had some problems with bringing the Libyan delegates, which wanted to come here as well. But I don't. That was just because the situation in Libya, because they're mostly in Benghazi, and they have, you know, it's to go to Tripoli is not so easy for them, and then they had to apply for a visa and they had to send. It was a nightmare. So we have to organize that next time much more in advance, because we can imagine, they couldn't imagine the technical problems they had in Libya to bring them here. Okay.
Thank you very much to Dan and Brother Dan. Okay, colleagues, what we're going to do now is we've broken into 3 workshops, into small groups, where we discuss the issues around LGBT asylum seekers, what support organisations could give, what issues LGBT asylum seekers have in terms of leaving their home country, their journey to finding a secure this new space, and then trying to establish themselves in a new secure space. And what we try to do is look at the work both of Muslim and non-Muslim, LGBT and non-LGBT organisations in the entirety of that process. And that really was the challenge that we were putting out to sisters and brothers in your respective workshops, to just think through some of those issues. And we tried to make sure that each workshop had a number of LGBT asylum seekers so they could bring an authentic experience and voice of a few experience, a few journeys that have been taking place. And also we tried to bring into every group some sisters and brothers who represent organisations that provide some support in order to bring out our local and national stories. What we're going to do now is, from each of the 3 groups, we'd like a spokesperson just to give feedback for a few minutes, some of the key points that arose in the discussions in each of the groups. Now, I'm not expecting that we're going to be able to capture every single thing that did come up, but we can give a snapshot, a few ideas, so that we can share with other sisters and brothers around the room some of the different discussions that took place. So I'm not going to ask for volunteers because I'm a little more direct than that. I'm going to go with group 1 first, and then I'll seek because I think Dan is the spokesperson from group 1.
Well, yeah, okay, sorry.
And then after that we'll move to group 2, and then we'll move to group 3, and then we'll have a very, very quick round of questions, if there are any generic questions to ask, and then we'll move into the last sector of the evening, inshallah, and I promise it should not go on till 9:30. So Dan, if you're happy to feedback from group 1, is that okay?
Right.
Ding dong.
Sure.
Okay. So we just talked about the issues in a very broad way. We didn't go into a lot of specifics. Regarding the first question, how can we help LGBT communities and asylum seekers who are already in the Muslim world, is the first and foremost is to help through the net, the internet. To give some platforms where they can receive information and share information, and also ask questions. That's what was suggested. Where not empowered necessarily only by people from the West, but also people in the Arab world or in the Muslim world, and also from people who have had experience about LGBT asylum and about various other experiences like being transgender, spiritual questions, and sexuality. Empower and share this information. That's number 1. And then also connect through that to organizations or trusted people, or what was called key people and that can be trusted in the Arab world to help people further and decide what can be done. So it can be kind of a referral service as well to safe houses that already exist or making ones, new ones. Another suggestion was media. the media in the Arab world, and some criticize that in the group, saying, well, you know, what are you going to do? The media in the Arab world talk about LGBT issues, hello. But some said, you know, you can. There are actually examples, like in Lebanon recently, there was a huge discussion about the arrest of a group of men in a porn cinema, and actually the Lebanese media reacted to it. And okay, maybe it's in Lebanon, but the Lebanese media does have an impact, even if it's not even transmitted in other Arab countries like in Saudi. It doesn't have an impact, and the discussion continues. So there is maybe some ways to try and influence through the media. Well, that was just one suggestion. And empower people from the Arab world to use it, to voice some of the issues that they want to raise. Then there was lobbying, but some members felt that it's good and bad. Good because if you ask countries in the West to lobby for LGBT Arabs and Muslims, it's a good thing, but a bad thing because it can backfire, and people can. Some of the countries can say, "Well, what the fuck you're doing? You're coming here and imposing your Western values on our society. Who are you to tell us? And why should we don't want your financial aid anyway?" So there was like a feeling of ambivalence about that strategy.
That's the wrong strategy.
Yeah, well, you know, it was just a discussion. You know, that people said, and some people said no. And I'm just reporting.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that. Okay. Regarding the second question, which is how can communities be involved both in the Arab world and outside in Europe and the United States and Western world, is again related to the first issue we raised, the net. For me, people go back to that. The internet is really important. It can be used, and resources that have been developed in the West can be used, but you have to be careful not to impose solutions and values and ideas that are perhaps correct in the West, but are completely incorrect and unuseful in the Muslim world, and that needs a lot of thought. You know, that was generally a long discussion. So from that, I can say that it's to both facilitate. Maybe there was an idea of having a kind of a group discussions, not group discussions, a bulletin board or community service online where people can share information, including both people in the Arab world and the Muslim world about their sexuality and their experience and their solutions, and with some facilitators which can be professional and other NGOs, which also relates to the third question, which I'll come back to. So that's another thing. Your referral service. So, but then there's a question of who's going to refer and how. You know, it's a problematic thing, but maybe referral when there are some issues coming up. I mean, it sounds really abstract what I'm talking about, because it is, because there are so many issues being brought. But who do we refer to within the Arab world or outside? That's a problematic thing and needs to be discussed. And how? You know, for example, you suggested a Kuwaiti psychologist, and there are other. We have there are examples of psychologists even in Iran, which are pro-gay and helped Iranian refugees to prepare them if they need to leave the country, which is important because, and that brings us to the third point, because when they come here as refugees, and it touches upon an issue that Emir was talking about, is, well, the last thing they're going to do is start saying, hey, I'm gay, I need asylum here. They don't even know how to talk about it openly, and they're scared. So, and then it's going to be used against them by law. Like in the UK, I can tell you, it's horrendous what happens. No, people just get sent back immediately. So, say the first thing when they demand asylum, they say, oh, no, we're not gay, because they're scared. They say, oh, how come you said on your asylum application you're not gay, and now you're changing your mind? You're not reliable, bye-bye, go back. So, there needs to be maybe some, if there is a situation where there is a decision that somebody needs to leave, and maybe there is some preparation before, if you're already there, not just when they get here. That's another thing. And there is a referral and also empower by knowledge. We talked about that before. Knowledge that is accumulated, by different activists, different people in the Arab world already and outside, and share it and discuss it. I guess it's time for me to stop. And
Mother Nature is telling you.
It's a good.
I just gosh.
Yeah.
And there also needs to be kind of lobbying if there is an intervention. For example, in Europe about asylum laws, there needs to be something that is collective, because asylum laws are different from different countries, but the biggest problem, which I just mentioned, was how do asylum seekers get asylum here, and how can they talk about sexuality. So there needs to be an education also of authorities here of the problems that people face when they come to ask for asylum, and maybe pressure on the governments to change procedures, like not just ask them when they come here, are you gay, and then use it against them, but actually learn and then save a lot of huge work with witnesses being psychologists, etc., and going for a huge legal process which costs a lot of money and emotional stress for the asylum seekers. So there needs to be some kind of education and I think this is where we start.
Great, superb. Dan, thank you very much. That's really, really comprehensive. Thank you to everyone in Group 1. What I am going to say, from a charity democracy point of view, is that there is actually some really, really good work going on, particularly on the last 2 points that you made about lawyers and the legal system, particularly within European Union countries. Particularly within European Union countries, there are lawyers who are working on LGBT asylum rights, and who are not only collecting the experiences of LGBT asylum seekers in the European context, those seeking asylum in Europe, but they're also collecting the legal cases, the arguments that were used, and there are also examples of the Air Centre, for example, which is based in London, which provide absolutely brilliant legal support. The one thing that I do know from my own experience working in terms of the LGBT asylum issue in the UK is that there are many, many bad lawyers out there who are doing very, very poor quality work.
Just want money.
Who want your money and will deliver you very, very little. Who know very little about the respective legislations, both national level and at European level, and who simply are failing LGBT asylum seekers in terms of their rights to seek asylum in the country that they do try and seek in. And what I will do is provide to Ludovic and to CALEM and HMDF some of the information and web links to those particular organisations. And the Air Centre in particular in the UK is looking for case studies. So if there are asylum seeker sisters and brothers out there who are LGBT and whose case has been failed, for example, their initial application for asylum has been rejected, the Air Centre is prepared to take on cases in certain circumstances, not in every circumstance, but in certain circumstances, if they are aware of that. And we've got some excellent lawyers and barristers who will fight those cases through the European institutions in order to try and secure, the protection for LGBT asylum seekers, and they're particularly concerned with the Muslim world. And you touched on the fact that many sisters and brothers within the Muslim world find it very difficult to articulate issues around sexuality or identity, particularly if it's an LGBTI identity. And that's something that I think authorities...
I don't know if they have a difficulty to articulate. They have difficulty articulating Western concepts, and that is used against them.
We've got many instances where people haven't initially declared their LGBTI identity, and that is later used against them. So that's part of a process of not being able to express or articulate their identity, and that is an issue. But there are means and ways to correct that. Certainly, I'll just give you an example, if I may, in the UK, of where we have effectively argued legally that that is not a legitimate ground to deny a person if there's late disclosure, i.e. a person announces at a very late stage that they are LGBTI, even if their initial application has been failed. A late disclosure does not disqualify you, or should not disqualify you, from being entitled to access asylum on the grounds of LGBT status. So there are precedents even in the UK, and we've got some excellent lawyers, and as I say, I will share those details with Brother Ludovic and for all of you. But there is help there. And part of what you were talking about, which I really liked, was the idea of sharing that knowledge and making sure that we're keeping one another informed. And actually, while I was here over yesterday and today, I was thinking about just the level of experience and the number of people who've got access, or who are engaged with supporting LGBT asylum seekers in your own countries and your own national organisations. That some of these cases need to be brought out, and if those individuals are willing, and so that we can share those experiences and make sure that we consolidate and make the authorities as robust as possible. Because part of what we've done in the UK is to make sure that our Home Office, which is the, I suppose, Interior Ministry, which deals with asylum applications, to train the staff within the immigration service, within the judiciary who deal with asylum applications, to better understand the lives and experiences, particularly from those of black and Muslim faith or traditions, community backgrounds. So thank you very much.
You have a fantastic caseworker. Yusuf, it's amazing.
We've got many people working in UK Black Pride. There's a UK LGIG Lesbian Gay Immigration Group, Centre. There are many really good organisations who actually do some serious work and are organised and are serious professionals. Not just amateurs, but serious professionals with big, decent engagement with authorities, who will fight cases and win cases, inshallah. Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to Group 2. So thank you to everyone in Group 1 for your contributions. Group 2, Susie, are you going to, sister?
Yes. Had some strong opinions about organizations, so most of our time went on to discuss, to politically correct, the intentions of the LGBTI, of an organization working on asylum, because there's been stories of not good intentions of the people working, and then trading help for sex and such forth. So we were having quite a hefty discussion upon that area, but I will try and at least move on a little bit from that. But obviously, if that is things that is arising, that is also something that we should talk about and share, and make sure the people that work with asylum or work with vulnerable people are outed, so that we can make sure that this is a safe space for them to be in. In terms of NGOs, and I represent an NGO in Norway, and how to work with asylum, safety is number one for sure, which we were speaking about, and having your basic needs met, as in housing, food, and how we were speaking about how can organizations do this.
I think it's different from country to country, because at least Norway, where I come from, the government supports the asylum seekers and we make sure they have a place to stay. Although there's a whole discussion about whether that's a safe place or not a safe place, but at least it's a place to stay. And you have some rules as to what standards the places have to have. But as far as I gathered, it's not like that in all European countries, especially not now with the economical climate that we have. So a safe place to stay, and that's something that maybe organizations also should look into, to make sure that we create safe spaces where they can live and have a shelter. In terms of also my personal opinion is that this is not something that working with gay LGBTI asylum seekers is not something that only LGBTI people or activists should do, but also others. We work with lawyers that are work on asylum projects, and they work only with LGBTI projects, but they are heterosexuals that work on this, and not only for the gay community to be fighting for our own people, to put it in that way. Organizations that also need lawyers, psychologists, and social workers, because even I think some of the discussions we had is basically also shows what I have in our everyday life, is that a bit of a clash between the collectivistical ideas that many asylum seekers come to European countries where there's maybe in a more larger extent an individual way of thinking. So that when you find your association, you find your organization, there's an expectation that is maybe too high as to what they can do. And that for us as organizations, we have to be quite clear as to what we can do and what we can't do, and have quite a high threshold of moral as to how we can approach the members and how we should not approach the members. To make sure that you have your working cap on and your private cap on, and that you keep the two separate. So there's no confusion as to trading sex or trading other things for help in terms of your case, or that will improve your case, which is what we spoke a lot about. I think a good way of working, which we do in Norway, is making sure that all new asylum seekers that come to the country are aware of the possibility and aware of the rules which they come, which are the rules that are working in the country that you're coming to. So basically, you know, letting them know, because the places they live in, the camps that they live in, they are not the same as the Norwegian community. There's different rules, and it's the same as maybe the country they came from in the first place. And then for the governments to expect that they are honest in the first interview is unrealistic. In my experience, in my opinion, that when they live in a very hostile environment, where they don't see the fact that you have basic rights and the law covers you and they will protect you, then you cannot expect them to also tell everything when they sit in that first interview. And also the high level of shame and the cultural aspect, we also need to make sure that the governments have that information, so that they can scholar the people that meet the asylum seekers when they come, and make sure that there are certain things and rules that they know, such as you do not have to speak to a lawyer that comes from your same country. If your English or other language is sufficient, you can have a different language. You don't have to speak your native language. Such things makes, in our experience, makes it much safer for them to be honest in the first interview, which makes it easier in the process to come. So these are the ways that I think as organizations we can support, and it's also I cannot stress enough how important it is for us as organizations to, when we support and when we write letters of support and when we offer support, that we have a high threshold, so that we don't, because if we 1 or 2 times, you know, get taken in supporting people that are saying they are not, then that can be difficult later, and that will spoil not only for that one case, but for all the others that come after. So to make sure that you have some clear standards as to when you write a letter of support, so that it's a mission from your organization that you have certain so many meetings, or so long being active, or so many, you know, so that you are quite sure that that will also be better for the government when you meet the government, that they will also see that yes, they are a serious organization, and the letter of support that you write will then have a more high value than it would if you didn't. I don't know if you want to add something or I've forgotten something.
Group 3.
So go to group 3. So a lot of the things that group 1 and group 2 talked about, you know, we also discussed. Obviously, it was quite.
S'il vous plaît, please.
A lot of the things that group 1 and group 2 discussed was also obviously covered in group 3. So I'm not going to repeat what was discussed, you know, for the sake of time. But obviously, Secret Garden has done a tremendous amount of work, and through his work, we were able to learn with a lot of details on how asylum seekers migrate. Where do they enter? How do they get to enter? And if they enter from one country, what happens? Can they transfer to another country, and so on and so forth? What are the tricks of the trade? And there was some common problems that we shared from Norway as well. Now, for me, as an American, we don't have an asylum program in the United States. You cannot come as a refugee. That's not an application process that is available. It is in Canada. However, what I am committed to do, and here are other problems, is that I will definitely be writing about it, and I would like to have a section on our website that we can share resources in English. And I'm hoping that, I know Secret Garden has their site in several languages, and English is one of them, and I will definitely be sending a link. And I would really like to have resources. I think this is really, really important. But more important than anything, I think, is preparing asylum seekers. What do they have to do mentally? The self-empowerment of the asylum seekers, because what we are saying several times in the first two groups and in our group is that when through their application process they cannot come to say what their identity is, because it's an insecurity problem, it's an identity problem. They have never proclaimed their identity, and so this is an empowerment process. And MPV, I'm very proud that that's something that we have always been nurturing from an Islamic perspective. So,
what I wanted to say is just something I heard you say, that the immigration law and immigration and asylum law is different from one to another. It's not true. The law is the same, but I think the country how they use it is different. That's why if there is any asylum procedures used, you have always the chance to make appeal to Brussels. That is, you have to know.
Yeah,
that.
there is, but
anyway,
actually in practice there are different procedures. And yes, the law in terms of your EUs is for all the EU. However, how it's applied in the UK is very different to how it's applied in the Netherlands, and the procedures that the Home Office in the UK uses to say he's gay or she's lesbian or whatever are very different. And we just had a case now. There were problems with this case, but he's not Muslim. Is Ola, he's from Nigeria. I wrote this case. When he came, he's a black Nigerian guy. He came to the UK. He wasn't very clear about his sexuality. And the UK Home Office was using every trick in the book to get him out. Nigerians are not reliable. He contradicts himself. Yet, and they do it very, very quickly in the UK. So sometimes the lawyers don't have enough time to put an appeal to Brussels, or the case. There's various problems. So you're right. In terms of European law, yes. In terms of practice, it differs from country to country. And what could be done, I think that's what the group said, is intervene on the level of procedure. Because, we had Prime Minister David Cameron making a big statement in 2010. Everybody that is LGBT and is running away from danger in Africa should be given an asylum seeker, and then asylum status in the UK. And yet, they just chuck all these women to Yarl's Wood, and lock them up, and they hire. I don't know how it is in the Netherlands. They even hire a plane per asylum seeker that costs something like £60,000